Kyan Evans unofficially had 9 assists on Saturday at Cherokee. Josh Marlow, what if he made that a habit?
This is Tyler Zeller, and you're listening to Locked On Tar Heels.
You are Locked On Tar Heels, your daily podcast on the UNC Tar Heels. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, what's up? It's Wednesday, October 22nd, 2025. Welcome into the Locked On Tar Heels podcast, the only daily North Carolina show out there. I'm your host, Isaac Shade. You're joining me at the place to get your Tar Heels content every single day. It's all part of the Locked On Podcast Network. I sincerely want to thank you for making us your first listener watch to get your hump day going the right way, baby. This episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. I want to welcome in all our everydayers, all the great members of the Locked On Tar Heels Discord community, and of course, all our insiders as well. That number, by the way, has been growing of people wanting to see the full footage from the Cherokee scrimmage. If you want to get in on that, the links to the Locked On Insiders is in the show notes, as well as the Discord. Joining me on the show today, our good buddy Josh Marlow from the Four Corners podcast, from the Heel Tough blog and podcast. He and Pagnotta hanging out, doing it all the time. Great content for you. What's neat is we got a little coming together of things because it's Wednesday, and that means it's What If Wednesday coming at you. We're going to pose some what ifs brought to us by listeners and watchers of the show, and we'll pull out, see what it is, and Josh and I are going to answer those for you and have a conversation about it. What's cool is over the summer, Marlow and Pagnotta did their own what if series, but with a different type of what if. Marlow, what was that?
Yeah, so we did the biggest what ifs in Carolina basketball history, and we did decade by decade. And we started with the 1950s because that's really when Carolina basketball got to the national scene. Obviously, the 1957 title team, all the way through the 2010s. And so it was a lot of fun. A lot of stuff I had already, I knew as a little kid when I was reading and learning about the program, but kind of get to rehash some things, relearn some things, and just really talk about, what if this result went this way, or what if Carolina would have fired Dean Smith? There was just a lot of different conversations that came up because, this is a decorated program, but, it could be very undecorated if things would have went different. So, man, we had a lot of fun going back down memory lane. It took me a lot longer to get through the what if series than I thought it was going to. I thought we'd be done in a month. It was about a 2.5 month, 3 month project, but we had a lot of fun. So hopefully guys can go check that out.
Because of all that, I feel like every waking moment of my life is podcasting. And so I've earmarked to be able to listen to those when I do my holiday travels for Thanksgiving and Christmas. So I'm very excited that Josh has actually put that all together in one audio thing to listen to. That you said it's about 5 hours long. Is that right?
It was 5 hours and 48 minutes of all the episodes that we did. So Anthony was actually surprised. He said it was going to be more like 7 hours. But, I mean, we spent 5 hours and 48 minutes asking and answering every what-if possible scenario from the last 70 years. So that's why I did that, was for maybe for someone to bookmark it for Thanksgiving, Christmas, when they get on the road traveling for the holidays, to keep yourself occupied, because we tackled the big topics, that's for sure.
Okay, well, very seriously, I've already got my holiday drive time earmarked for that. I cannot wait to listen to it. I'm going to put, folks, the links for both the audio version of that and the video version of that in the show notes. So if you're wanting to catch up with that on your own drive, get in on it. Great stuff from these fellas. On our own What If Wednesday today, I've got a bowl full of what ifs for this Carolina basketball season posed by listeners the audience of this show, because I love finding opportunities for this to be about all of us, not just me, not just Marlow, but man, this is a Locked On Tar Heels community where we all dive in and contribute together. So I want to thank you guys for submitting so many of these. Marlow, we're going to get started. I'm going to pull the first one out and see what we get. All right, here we go. First what if of today. What if Kyan Evans averages 5 assists a game? Will that give a higher ceiling to Carolina, and how much of one? So there you go. And by the way, that's from T-Man. I've got to make sure I shout out who gave us that one. So Marlow, what if Kyan Evans averages 5 assists a game? What do you think?
Well, I think it would tell you that Carolina's offense is functioning at its fullest potential, and I think is running at a level that they're just going to be up and down the court. Because the one thing I've noticed from being at the blue-white scrimmage, from some of the footage you put up from the Cherokee scrimmage, man, that ball doesn't stop. That ball moves. They race it up and down the court, and even in the half court, it's going inside out from one side of the floor to another. But I think that would tell you that he's a willing passer. He's looking to get his teammates involved, and that Carolina's got better shot making because he's passing the ball to guys that can make shots. And all of that means that Carolina's offense gets to another level, gets to another gear than maybe we're already anticipating it being going into the season. And if that's the case, then I think that would elevate Carolina's status. That ceiling, I think, could maybe raise to ACC regular season contender. Which I think, in short story, I mean, are they? Yes, I think they're going to play meaningful games in February and March that are going to impact the ACC standings. But if I had filled out an ACC ballot, Carolina would have been third. I would have voted them behind Louisville, who's my pick to win the league. I would
Agreed.
have voted them behind Duke. But if this offense can maybe get to even another gear of efficiency led by just great ball movement, maybe Carolina could outscore these opponents on a more consistent basis. Maybe their ceiling elevates to one that could score its way to an ACC title. I think what's most important about that what if is I do think that that's an attainable goal, because from the early footage I've seen of Kyan Evans, being interested to see more of him this Friday against BYU, next Wednesday against Winston-Salem State, there is a willing passer in him, almost to the point where I do think Hubert might have to tell him at sometimes it's okay for you to shoot and it's okay for you to seek your offense. But every time I've watched him shade, he gets the ball, it's up the court in two dribbles, but then it's out of his hands. He's trying to find a teammate. So he's going to be willing to have the ball move in a different way than Elliot Cadeau did. So I do think this what if is very attainable. And if it is, I do think it does raise Carolina's ceiling to competing with the likes of Duke and Louisville for an ACC regular season title.
I think that's such an important thing, an important point that you made toward the end there, Josh, about the fact that, yes, he is not Elliot Cadeau, but that doesn't mean he has to do it the same way Elliot did, right? Like Elliot's going to be able to do that for Michigan this year and hope that goes really well. But Kyan is a better shooter, because not only, to your point, not only is Hubert Davis going to be okay with Kyan taking more of his own offense at times, he has to for Carolina to be as successful as they can be. And I think that's going to be one of the big balancing acts this year, of Kyan being able to hone in on, when do I call Zero's number and when do I find the guys around me? Because, while he had Neat Clifford at Colorado State and a couple other guys, I don't, with all due respect to Colorado State, he's got more talent around him, quite frankly now, right? And I think that's a massive part of this too. And so he's going to have to be able to define that. And so, Marlow, when you say, like, I think that 5 a game is an attainable goal, I'm curious what you would say to people. Like, let's not look at his freshman numbers at Colorado State, because he was like 8 minutes a game. But last year, he averaged 3.1 assists to 1.9 turnovers and only had 5 or more assists 8 times last year, with a season high of 8. So, to get to 5 assists a game, that's a jump of almost 2 assists. Mm-hmm. What would you say to people that look at that number and his assist percentage, which, let me pull that back up, because I was actually looking at that earlier today. His assist percentage last year went from 15.8 his freshman year to 20.4 last year, which is in the range that could mean, with better players, it could get there. So what would you say to somebody that says, Marlow, there's no way he adds 2 assists a game this year?
Yeah, I think you're discrediting the talent that he's going to be playing with. And I do think if Carolina is playing the way that Hubert Davis wants them to play, there's going to be more possessions for him to add to his assist total. Colorado State, Nico Medved, more of a traditional half-court team, very defensive based. Did not want to play games in the 80s and the 90s. Didn't want to play high possession games. That's just the reality of the situation. But it worked for them. It got them to the tournament, got them to, a bad call away from going to the Sweet 16. Carolina, I mean, I've talked about it here in the last few weeks leading up to the season. This, we could talk about old school Roy Williams with the 2 bigs. It's going to be old school Roy Williams where they're going to run. They're going to play in the open court, because that's what this roster is designed to do. And so, I mean, I would say that, you're underestimating the talent that's around him. There's no doubt Carolina will always have more talent than Colorado State will have. And then I think just playing 8 to 10, 12 more possessions on a nightly basis will increase his chances to up those numbers as well. It's still a pretty big ask to go from 3.1 to 5.
Sure.
But it's doable. We're not asking him to go from 3.1 to 6. We're not asking him to double it. It's can you maybe raise it by 2? And I most certainly think with the litany of weapons Carolina will have on the perimeter and that front court, it's very attainable that he increases his assist total from 3.1 to 5.0 in Chapel Hill.
To put some even more numbers to what you said about the difference in tempo between Carolina and Colorado State last year, the Tar Heels were 34th at KenPom in adjusted tempo, while Colorado State was 270, Josh Marlow. And so I think that helps show what you're talking about. Something else that popped into my brain, I've not thought about this all offseason until right now. You know how in football, like let's say Drake May, it's not just about touchdown passes, it's about touchdowns responsible for example, whether that's through the air or on the ground or whatever it is. When you think about the difference between Kyan Evans and Elliot Cadeau, maybe Kyan's assist total or assist percentage is lower, but with who he is as a shooter, that brings him up in terms of like points responsible for on a pretty even playing field with Elliot. And I think maybe that's going to be a healthy way for us to think about it. The assist plus the points that he scores is probably going to be right in that same realm of what Elliot's doing. And to your point, I think you ultimately landed on your answer to this being the ceiling that changes if he gets to 5 assists a game is ACC regular season title, and then whatever accolades come along with that in the postseason. And I think that's a good word to leave it on.
Yeah, and if he's doing that stuff, I'm going to have a lot of fun with the receipts that I have marked from people this offseason that told me that he's not a North Carolina point guard. They should have went and paid the Donovan Dent asking price. Maybe they should have moved Ian Jackson over to point guard and not let him go play for someone like Rick Pitino at St. John's. Check out the exhibition, see how that experiment's going. If he's doing that type of stuff and he's single-handedly elevating Carolina's ceiling, you will not see a bigger person beating his chest and saying I'm right more than I will, because I loved him from the start. I've gotten ridiculed from how much I have talked about him this offseason. And so if he delivers and then maybe over delivers, I'm going to have a lot of fun at the expense of some Carolina fans and then some of those state fans that like to follow what the Tar Heels do as well.
And I'm going to be here for every single second of it. All right. There's the Kyan Evans what if. Great one, T-Man. We appreciate it so much. We got 2 more what ifs to get to today on the show. Can't wait to see what else we pull out of our bowl here. And we'll get to the very next one coming up in just a second. Right after I tell you about Mazda, who crafts cars for those who do more than simply move. Mazda delivers confidence with every ride, with more IIHS Top Safety Pick Plus awards than anyone else as of August 2025. From footwork to breathwork, athletes sweat all the details, and Mazda brings that same level of intentionality to how they craft every model. You can feel that incredible Japanese craftsmanship in every detail, from the metallic accents all the way to the available Nappa leather upholstery. With all-wheel drive standard in every crossover SUV, you can drive with confidence through almost any season. Because with Mazda, everyday drives, man, they feel like anything but. From smooth handling all the way to intuitive controls. And like Tar Heel athletes, Mazda sweats every detail, because when you make every move count, impossible becomes irrelevant. Mazda, move and be moved. This episode is also brought to you by Peloton, who is shaping the future of fitness with the brand new Peloton Cross-Training Tread Plus, powered by Peloton IQ. It's their most advanced equipment yet, designed to give you real-time guidance and endless ways to move. So whether you're running, you're lifting, you're cross-training, you can do all of that with your favorite instructors. And I love that it's like training reimagined. Peloton is built for breakthroughs with tools that help you plan, stay motivated, and reach your peak performance. Peloton the IQ system offers real-time strength coaching. It tracks your reps. It suggests the right weights. I need that. I'm like, I think I can curl this 85-pound thing. And then I'm like, oh no, I need a 10 or something like that. It corrects your form, helping make sure that every rep is safer and smarter. And the personalized class recommendations help keep you engaged. You get workouts tailored to your vibe and energy level every week. So let yourself run, lift, flex, and push forward. Explore the new Peloton Cross Training Tread Plus today at onepeloton.com. All right, Marlow, time for our second what if of the day. Let's see what the bowl gives us this time. And it says, what if all the pieces fit like we imagine they will? What is Carolina's ceiling? And that comes from Coach TJ. So, Marlow, what if not only does Kyan Evans average 5 assists a game, but what if all the pieces fit? What does that then mean for Carolina's ceiling?
If it all comes together and it's a perfectly looking puzzle, their ceiling is a Final Four. I'm not going to go as far to say national champion, but this, I mean, you got to remember, you paid $14 million for this roster. There's got to be a very high end potential for it. So if it all comes together, and Kyan Evans is what Kyan Evans was the last handful of games at Colorado State, and Seth Trimble is ready to be the guy with R.J. Davis and Armando Bacot no longer with the program. Luka Bogavac makes the transition from international basketball to the collegiate level, and the front core that is versatile and deep and dynamic can be the strength of this team on a night in, night out basis. Then Carolina can make a Final Four. And so I will, and I'm very comfortable and strong in saying that that's what the ceiling of this group is. Do I think they'll ever maybe emerge as the best team in the country? I don't know, because I think really highly of Purdue. I think really highly of Houston, but really shaded. It's really about getting to. It's so weird with the NCAA tournament. So much about it is surviving the first weekend and then getting to the second weekend, because what do coaches tell you? It's the same rhetoric you hear in baseball. The second weekend of the tournament is pretty much a crapshoot.
Yeah.
So it's like, can you position yourself? Can you get a really good seed? Can you have the matchups more line in your favor? Survive an upset the first weekend, and then who knows? You could kind of have something break through like it did in Hubert's first year, where there was just a clear path for you to get to the Final Four. So that's the ceiling of this group, and that's what the ceiling should be. And not just because they paid $14 million, but because, by God, this is North Carolina basketball. You've gone to 21 of those things. You've gone to a Final Four in every decade since 1940. Like, this is the borderline baseline expectation, is that every year you yield a roster that is capable of making it to the Final Four. And while I'm not going to say that on paper today that's what they are, but could they emerge as one like they did 2 years ago? Absolutely. So if everything comes together and everyone buys into their role and what they're being asked to do, the ceiling for this group is getting to the Final Four.
That makes a ton of sense to me. And I like the differentiation you made there. I think a lot of people, myself included, have said, I think the nation is probably overlooking this team. I think you feel that way from conversations we have, Marlow. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I see you shaking your head. But I think you're right that on paper, maybe you don't look at this roster and say that's a Final Four roster. But here's the difference for me, sir, is we look back at last year's team, that like this time last year, we look at that team and it's clearly flawed roster construction because you don't have the size you need, frankly, anywhere, but particularly in the front court where you struck out over and over and over again. With this team, I look at the roster construction and I said, that's a roster that I could coach. You know what I'm saying? That's a roster. You give me that team and I could probably put them in a good position to win, because even though maybe on paper it's not, that's a clear and obvious Final Four, man. You and I were talking about this before we started recording. The more I think about this team and the more I think about the way the parts complement each other, if it all, to Coach TJ's what if question, if all the pieces fit together like we imagine they will, boy, the way it's complementary football works in a beautiful way, right? Like I think the one that I've gone to the most this offseason is, because of all the shooting, whether it's Kyan Evans or Luka Bogavac, because any of these bigs can stretch and shoot, what a wide open that lane that opens up for Seth Trimble to do what Seth Trimble does best night in and night out, right? Like that's just one example of how if all the pieces fit, baby, watch out.
This is the first time, and I don't want to diminish what happened in Hubert's first year or what the team did 2 years ago when they won an ACC regular season title and was a 1 seed. This is the first time he has a roster equipped to do what he wants to do top to bottom. This is the deepest roster he has had. Like there's not a scenario in my mind where Carolina's playing 7 dudes in February unless they're just injured beyond belief.
Sure.
And if they are,
knock on every bit of wood you have around you right now. Good grief.
And if they are, guess what? That'll be an indictment of your head coach. That means you weren't able to develop the talent and cultivate a rotation. So you've got legitimate depth. You've got lineup flexibility that you quite literally never have had. Carolina, you saw the lineup the other day in the scrimmage where you had basically 3 bigs on one end of the floor. And that's because Carolina's going to play that way. There's going to be a time where Stevenson, Wilson, and Veesaar are on the court simultaneously.
Yes.
So you've got lineup flexibility, kind of like what Duke had last year, where Duke could just overwhelm you at different times with their size and their length with their physicality. You've got legitimate shooting 1 through 5 in your starting lineup. And then your guys coming off the bench, I'm confident that Jaden Young will put the ball in the basket. Zayden High looks like a completely different player after a year away from the program. You've got that in your arsenal. And I do think if they buy in defensively, they could be really doggone good on that end of the floor because their makeup should suggest that they are a good defensive team. So this is the first time, and in the old days, it took 4 to 5 years to build your program to this point. We say it shouldn't take that long in the portal era, but it has. But this is the first time his roster from top to bottom really does complement each other. And they can play different lineups, but not take a lack of production or a lack of execution or, you're doing this, you're leaning it more into this, but you're taking away from that. I don't see that with this roster. And so I think that's why the more that I've kind of watched this team, the more excited I get because I do think their potential is a lot higher than what a lot of people think it is going into the season right now. I think they're completely undervalued as the number 25 team in the country. I think that'll be proven through the non-conference season. And I'm pretty excited to kind of see this group that it gives off a competitive energy, kind of like what you saw 2 years ago. I'm ready to watch these guys make a name for themselves.
That's so true. And to your point about the depth, Marlo, and then we'll move on. Coach TJ's what if all the pieces fit because of the depth you were just talking about is even if it was what if almost all the pieces fit. I mean, you might not be Final Four like you said for the ceiling, but you could the answer to that what if I just maybe Jonathan Powell just isn't what we thought he was going to be. Even still, Carolina, you could look at that and say that's a second weekend basketball team, right? That's what that depth allows you. And that's part of what gives me hope. And so I love what you were saying there. All right, gang, we got one more what if to get to today. I love that one from Coach TJ. Let's shoot it off. Oh, and it fell right back down onto me. It hit the fan and went off. I got to throw it further. There we go. Marlo, we got one more what if to get to. Can't wait to see what our last one we pull out of the bowl is today, right here on What If Wednesday. Right after I tell you about Game Time, college football is back. I could not be more excited. The tailgates, the rivalries, the energy in the stands, man, there is nothing like it. But let's be real. Actually getting tickets can feel like more of a battle than the game itself. Endless queues, hidden fees, and the prices jumping up at checkout when you get there. That's why you got to use Game Time, the app that gives the advantage back to the fan. It's the easiest way to score last-minute tickets at the best prices with no surprise fees, y'all. What you see is what you pay. Honestly, it's faster, it's cheaper, and it's less stressful than any other way I've seen to buy tickets. And I love that you can find views from your seat right there in the app. Marlo, single game tickets for Carolina went on sale on Tuesday. I'm guessing there's people out there that probably didn't get the tickets they want. I think Game Time is a great place to do it. But I looked. The cheapest ticket right now for the Carolina-Kansas game on the first Friday of the season, you want to guess where that is on Game Time right now?
$225.
That's cute. $459.
Oh my goodness.
That's wild. Now, Game Time wants me to remind you, that those tickets will go down as we get closer to game time because people want to get rid of them. But maybe you don't want to spend that much. Guess what? 4 days earlier, on the opening day of the season, Monday, November 3rd, Carolina hosts Central Arkansas. Marlow, you can get in the door for as cheap as $27 that night. That's a lot better number. I know it's not Kansas, but man, to go see these guys in action I mean, you paid $25 for the Cherokee scrimmage this past Saturday, man. That feels like a good deal to me.
Yeah, it sounds like a great and more affordable way to go see Carolina play basketball. And that's why I do the media route, because I knew the Kansas ticket was going to be expensive, but it's also, I got denied that. So I may have to pay $450 to watch the two Titans, the two blue bloods of the sport we love, do battle in Chapel Hill.
Come on, Kirsch. What are you doing to my guy Marlow over here? Take the guesswork out of buying football tickets with Game Time. Download the app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Terms do apply. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Game Time today. All right, it's the last what if of today's episode. Let's wrestle around in the bowl and see what we can pull out. Here we go, Marlow. Oh, baby. This one's not going to make people happy. I'm just telling you right now. This one comes from our guy, Will Hager. What's up, Will? And Will says, and look, this one's going to be a real thing we got to wrestle with. What if Caleb Wilson can't shoot? In other words, what if UNC doesn't have a stretch four capable of making threes at a high volume and percentage? Marlow, I think this is a good one. Like, while it's a more critical one, not as positive as the first two, I think this is something real we got to wrestle with. So, Josh Marlow, what if Caleb Wilson can't shoot and I think we would say at the level we hope he can?
Yeah, I would tell you don't panic, because what this staff has done this offseason is what I begged them to do in Hubert's second year, which was install and make a high-low offense a part of what you do in the half court. I don't know if you saw our good buddy Andrew Jones wrote about that over there at Tar Heel 24/7. Inside Carolina has detailed it as well, where you're going to see a lot of two-man sets, two big-man sets, and with that, you're going to see that high-low offense that was really a staple of what Roy Williams' teams did in the half court, their ability to execute. And so, yes, in a perfect, ideal world, Carolina, Hubert Davis wants Caleb Wilson to shoot 38% from three, give them that floor spacing to make the offense that much harder to guard in the half court. The good news is that they've got secondary options. They've got a different way to attack defenses, which is an adjustment made by Hubert and the coaching staff, because they have not had that. They have lived and died by if that four spot hits, they're good. Brady Manick, Harrison Ingram, Carolina was Final Four good. When Pete Nance was misused, and Carolina last year didn't find out until game 25 that Jalen Withers should have been the starting four-man, then Carolina endured the ups and downs that they did in those 2 years. So I'm not prepared to see Caleb Wilson be a bad shooter, just because everything I've seen so far, he's legit. He's him. This kid's motivated. He's talked a lot of talk. I think he's ready to back up that talk. The good news is that Carolina can pivot and find a different way to still get production out of that four spot. It's just going to look a lot different than what you've seen so far under Hubert Davis. But again, that's a good thing that he's willing to be adaptive, and he's learning from his past mistakes and trying to figure out ways to still maximize this roster. So if Carolina struggles to shoot the ball from the outside, I think they'll just commit to playing inside out. And as we've seen here in recent years, you can play inside out and get to a Final Four, or like, what you saw with Purdue and UConn, get to a national championship game.
And I think you kind of alluded to this, but it goes back to the depth that you were talking about in the last segment, right? Like, if Caleb is having a freshman off day, guess what? I know Jarin Stevenson hasn't shot from deep the way he wanted to in his 2 years at Alabama, but this dude has a better pedigree than that would suggest. And I think, let's not be unfair to Nate Oates, but I do think that Carolina is probably going to put Jarin in a better position to succeed with what he does well than maybe happened in Tuscaloosa, where he was asked to go hang out in the corner and wait for a shot.
Yeah.
And so I think that's part of it too, is not only, as you so well detailed there, Josh, Carolina going to play differently. And we saw great examples of that big to big passing, even Saturday in the Cherokee scrimmage. Gang, if you want to go back and watch some of that. But I think that depth is a critical part of that answer as well. And I'm with you. I don't think this is ultimately going to be something we have to worry about. And I think we got to temper expectations. We're not saying Caleb's going to come out and be a 40% 3-point shooter, but if he does enough 33 to 37% to keep opposing defenses honest with his level of athleticism, that's enough, mixed in with everything that Marlow just laid out about different schematic potentials that Carolina can do with all the bigs. And keep in mind, it's not just, oh, RJ, we need you to bury all the threes. You've got all these other dudes around, Kyan and Luka and Jonathan Powell, etc., that are going to make them at a high volume and a high percentage. That's going to give Caleb better looks. And if it's an off night, guess what? That dude's athleticism can get him to the rim or find somebody else, because he is not only a willing passer, but he's an able-bodied passer. And so, Marlow, I'm with you on all that.
Yeah, and I think something that I got the sense of from watching him play in person a few weeks ago is if his outside shot isn't there, he's not going to check out offensively. He's going to put the ball on the floor, and he's going to get to the rim. He'll isolate himself on the floor and really control the game through the half court with his ability to back down a defender, but turn and score, or use the passing to generate offense for others. And so that's why I think you really got to like him so much. Is there's all this upside and there's so much potential, but there's a foundation in what his game is and what his game can be, that no matter what, he's still going to be productive, because he can just put the ball in the basket in a multitude of different ways. His first step is quick enough to where when he puts the ball on the floor, he can get by you, draw fouls. He should live at the free throw line. So, yes, I do think in an ideal world, he's shooting 38% from three, and Carolina is playing this free will, open flow style of offense. But if not, if they've got to make it more old school, you've got a guy that can really be an impact in that way as well, which is a good thing for Hubert Davis to hang his hat on, because he has not had that in his previous 4 years on the bench in Chapel Hill.
The other thing we got to take into effect here with Caleb Wilson's game is that he's a legit two-way player. Yeah. Where Marlow, I'll compare it to, he's not a Brave anymore, but Dansby Swanson, who used to be the Brave shortstop. He's now the Cubs shortstop, is one of the single best defenders in all of baseball. He was a very streaky hitter, but what I always loved about Dansby when he was a Brave is that even when he was in one of his struggles at the plate, the defense literally never fell off, because he knew that was a critical way he could help his team win baseball games. I think about Leaky Black, for example.
Yeah.
It's not about always needing to score 10 points a game as a defender. If I'm defending Josh Marlow and I hold him 10 points under his season average, it's essentially this dude is a dynamo on the offensive end of the court. then I've helped my team just as much as scoring 10 points above my average. And if Caleb's able to do that defensively, where that is not just something he's like, all right, I guess no, he's in on the defensive end of the floor, and that's a great thing for Carolina, and another way he can help this team win even when the shot's not falling.
No, I think that's a fantastic point. There's a competitive spirit to him that you don't see many freshmen show up with. Even when Carolina's brought in high-end 5-star freshmen, there's an energy there that is contagious and infectious, and I think it'll permeate throughout the roster, where this kid wants to win, man. So if his shot's not falling, that doesn't mean he's going to do what most 5-stars do, which is hang their hat and pout and not play defense. No, he'll get in a stance and he'll fight through that ball screen. He'll get to the backboard and get that rebound. He'll take that charge. He'll do all those things that equals winning, because he's a winner. And I think that's something that you really got to like and love and celebrate about him as well. So I think it's why I think I'm as bought in on him as any big freshman Carolina's brought in the last handful of years, is just because there's a motor that you cannot coach, but there's a motor you can appreciate. And at the end of the day, and Hubert said this at ACC tip-off, he does not care about himself. Like, he's a one-and-done freshman that has bought into the front of the jersey. I can rock with that. That's cool to me. And so I think it's going to be a lot of fun watching him play that way, because if he's doing that against his teammates in scrimmages, what's that going to look like when he's on the floor Friday against the number one high school player in AJ Devanza? What's that going to look like when Carolina's got to go to Cameron, or they're taking on Louisville in big games in the ACC in February and March? That's what gets me excited about him, and it's why I appreciate this what if he cannot shoot. No matter what, Caleb Wilson will still be an impactful freshman for Carolina.
That's a good word, Will. Thank you. And thanks to everyone else who has submitted what ifs as well. If we haven't been able to get to your what ifs, because I know a bunch of you have submitted them, thank you. I'm keeping them all in here, and we might get to them throughout the offseason. Next Wednesday is our last Wednesday before the regular season starts, and that's always bold prediction day. So we're not going to do what if Wednesday next week. But again, I'm going to hold on to these because you never know when it might be a good day to break them out. So there we go. The Caleb Wilson one. Get out of here with that. Guys, I want to say a big word of thanks to our guy Marlow for hanging out with us today. As a reminder, go check out his What If series there. Man, really, really good stuff. Again, I'm going to put that link in the show notes. Make sure you're locked in with Four Corners Pod, Heel Tough Blog, and everything he and Pagnotta are doing. It's such good content, man. I love it, and I eat it up as well. If you've not subscribed to our show on video and audio, do that right now. If you're not already a Locked on Tar Heels insider, man, it's a great way to go next level with this show. I'm just about to go live with my stats and records update for this season. You get free access to all of that as an insider. You want to get in on it. If you're not in our Discord, man, you're missing out as well. Man, so many great people in there hanging out, chatting all day long. It's always a great day to be a Tar Heel. We'll talk again tomorrow with Coach Rob, but until then, peace.